Hey pirates, look out behind you. The Morngulls are coming. Oh my god, they have big floppy hats on. They can't hear us over the sound of their exquisite fashion sense. But Wendigos might be the least of their worries, as terrifying as they are. Because not only are the Pirates of Sartosa press ganged with an entire army of the rotting undead, they also have to deal with the Greenskin menace, stuck between a rock and a hard place. Depth Guard can bulldoze their way through Orc infantry and blend them into chop suey with help from the Hunger, but Savage Orc Big Guns might just give them the fight for their lives. And Skarsnik, Warlord of Eight Peaks, leads this army for Slade as a battery for the Global Wall active, with Lord who can get stuck in and make sure you get multiple uses of that ability over the course of a battle. An Orc Shaman with Foot of Gork and Fists of Gork might be curb-stomping blobs like Marcus Phoenix, while the Eight Peak Loonies and the Warlord's boys sneak behind the Sartosan lines to cause some havoc in the rear. So we've got Slade with the Greenskins and Bordesia as the pirates, with Skarsnik rolling deep with Savage Big Gun Bodyguard. Now he's usually brought when you're up against an artillery faction and want to let your monsters get in close without getting shot to pieces. That Trixie Traps can hide your Big Mama Spiders or your Giants, but nothing like that here. So he's basically just going to be using him as a WA battery to make sure that he keeps getting that global attack buff off and gets it multiple uses throughout the course of the game. There is a Vanguard and Night Goblin Shaman with Vindictive Glare for sniping out crabs on the right flank, and that sneaky ambush squad going around the side. They'll be trying to get into the back and maybe harry some of those, well, I'd say range units, but there's actually no range units on the field for the Pirates whatsoever. So the Greenskins have the low ground, but they outrange the Pirates of Sartosa because they have a bunch of air boys, and the undead have 0. And I do repeat that, 0 artillery and 0 range units. It is a full melee rush build. They're backed up by a Vampire Fleet Admiral with Crab Summons and Fog of the Damned, Free Company, Depth Guard, and a whole lot of zombies. So, shades of the ever-chosen Invitational, full Sartosan Vanguard build, but none of them are actually using Vanguard. Neither the Free Company nor the Morngulls. Very interesting. Keeping them all together, seeing what comes. More of a conservative play, but it might just pay off. Now, Free Company are really cool because they have Vanguard deployment, bonus versus infantry of 6, and perfect vigor until they rout. So at their price point, they are a really solid pick for cutting through chaff. And of course, the Sartosan build has all the terror they could ever need. 4 Morngulls gives them more than enough power to cause chain routes all across the Greenskin line. And they still have the high ground for now. Put it in a double fast forward. Just a little bit of posturing early on as the ambush wing for Slade is discovered. So we're going to turn it up to 11 real quick as both sides pretty much YOLO into the maw of each other's defense. I'm going to be very curious how Sartosan Free Company and Morngulls stack up against Skarsnik's WA, because that global is pretty much guaranteed to net serious value here. They both want to get into melee as soon as possible. Sartosa wants to get stuck in too, so be very curious to see how that works out. Can the Pirates and the Undead hold with the Green Machine popping off? And as it goes off here, cannibal corpses into the thick of it, feasting on some Orc boys with the hunger they can never sate, ripping them apart. And they should have no problems stomping that engagement into oblivion, but there's a lot more bodies on the field they're going to have to carve through, and even though that charge was fantastic, not going to be enough to break the flank quite yet. Got Depth Guard showing Savage Orcs what real Choppas look like. Fog of the Dam going down, lowering melee attack by 26 in an AoE. And Denizens of the Deep summoning some crab people in the rear, and they are probably going to head straight for the air boys, shut them down, because those are the biggest threat to the Depth Guard, and you do not want to be having your Depth Guard shot to pieces by Orc air boys from long range. Orc Shaman lining up a juicy Foot of Gork. American History X curb stomp dropping down and crushing the undead beneath the boot of a literal god, just evaporating their line, and that should help those Savage Orcs trade pretty nicely. Might be able to win that fight now. They weren't going to before. Zombies and Depth Guard would have been too much, and the crabs are right where they want to be, snacking on some Orc air boys in the back and making sure they cannot shoot the Depth Guard. Over here, we've got a lot of goblins fighting the Pirates, and to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how that one will go. There are 2 regiments of renown that are in support, fighting it out with the Pirates, and those cutlasses, those bonus versus infantry dual swords, will definitely make good account of themselves, but the Greenskins will be giving as good as they're getting, and there's no support now for the Pirates of Sartosa because those zombie deckhand mob polearm units just crumbled in the background. So they're going to do a little bit of twirling, a little bit of fancy schmancy stuff. But yeah, I think the Greenskins will be able to win that fight and then collapse in behind the Pirates of Sartosa line, but that line doesn't really exist anymore because the Mongols are again into the cookie jar, and they've done a fantastic job this game of getting into the back and getting into the archers, already causing terror and havoc all across the battlefield, and those archers will not be long for this world, with the Mongols in contact and shredding them in sustained melee. There's a bit more air fire coming in, but not sure it'll turn that, and if the Mongols cycle charge, they might be able to take out 2 full units of those air boys, which would not be Slade's favorite thing in the world. In the center, there was still Skarsnik and the Vampire Fleet Admiral dueling it out. Neither one of them making use of their bonus versus large. AP will certainly help, and both of them have that, so they'll still deal a decent amount of damage to each other. And more denizens of the deep, more crabs in the woods, about to pour out and running over as it looks like a vindictive glare arcing through the tree line and going after that Vampire Fleet Admiral. But really, I don't think vindictive glare is going to be very useful this battle because there's really minimal large on the field. You can kill like a Morgul model with it, but it's better for big, high HP single entities that will take the full force of that magic missile. So there's nothing really on the field for Sartosa that fits that category. Skarsnik is surrounded by Depth Guard, and I'm going to be curious if he lives for too long in that fight. They have 64 weapon strength. They don't have a bonus versus infantry, which Skarsnik technically is, although he does have Gobla, but that high weapon damage and the pretty decent chunk of AP they have might mean Skarsnik gets dragged down in sustained melee, but he'll also be recharging that wall, which isn't the worst thing ever for the Greenskins, and they've kind of retreated, and this battle has gotten very spread out as Durusty Airs and a lot of the archers have retreated to the safety of the hills, firing in from multiple angles, getting that enfilade fire on top of the Mongols and crumbling them. And they're about to go down, but there's a lot of terror routing on the Greenskin force as well. So lots of things to think about as this battle progresses. One of those Mongols in the tree line just disappeared. They crumbled. This next one about to go down too. So that'll be 2 of the 4 Mongols off the field. And Slade doing a pretty good job of skirmishing them down, despite the fact that a lot of them got into the archer boys in a relatively quick fashion. Managed to kill a lot of them. But there are still 2 Mongols left, and the Night Goblin Shaman still running around trying to make himself useful in whatever way he can, and I'm really not sure he's going to be able to. Now, this is a better way to recharge the wall. If you're in the middle of a bunch of zombies, they will not rack up very much damage against Skarsnik, but he is by himself, isolated from the rest of his army. That might be an issue, and the Greenskins cannot afford to be losing their legendary lord here. Morale shock with still 2 Mongols left on the battlefield would be pretty disastrous for the Greenskins, and I think that it might just put the nail in the coffin for them if Skarsnik goes down. But he's holding out for now, and one more Mongol about to drop, but these ones are relatively full HP, and if they get into their target, which it looks like they will, the hunger should regen them up. Now, interesting choice from Sartosa, because they went for Lore of Deeps. He does not have heals for those Mongols. They cannot rely on Invocation of the Heck, and they cannot rely on the Drowned Dead to summon more zombies. So it's basically just Crab Summons and Fog of the Damned. Nice little Vindictive Glare into the front of that Vampire Fleet Admiral, doing a little bit of damage anyway. He sprinted across the battlefield. Last time we saw him, he was fighting Skarsnik. A minute and a half later, and he's halfway across the map, but it's a vampire for you, I guess. And Skarsnik again fighting some Depth Guard. So I'm a little hesitant about this fight. It's not the worst thing ever, again, because he's recharging that wall, but guaranteed he's taking a ton of damage from the high melee attack and high weapon strength of those Depth Guard. And Gobla will definitely get some nice little snacks in. Might be able to carve them up, and the Piranha sending heads tumbling to the ground. Depth Guard making sure their choppas get some action in too, and Gobla munching an entire Depth Guard alive, or dead, as it were. But yeah, Skarsnik taking a ton of damage in that fight. Mongols got into the Rusty Airs, and Fog of the Damned helping support them in melee. Savage Org Big Guns charging forward, and they were saying, oh, we got this, boss, we got this, we got this, we got this. And then they just said, nope, we're out of here. We're out of here, boss, we don't want to fight that. They got terror around, and now they're running for the hills, and the Spider Riders getting in there too. So Balance Bar still dead even, and we're about 10 minutes in. Mongols and the Vampire Fleet Admiral holding on, and wherever they march, the mushrooms flee in terror, both sides beaten to hell at this point, and we got a barn burner on our hands, because this one will be going right down to the wire. But Slade is doing the right thing, avoiding CQB wherever he can, just using those archers to poke down the monsters from a safe distance. They do have good missile resist, but their armor's low, and their hitboxes are pretty big, so definitely worth to shoot them down rather than try to go in. And I think that'll probably be the smartest play, but Skarsnik is running like hell from those depth guard. The vampires are on the hunt, and they want Gobla's booty. Will they be able to catch up? Probably. I think they're quite a bit faster than Skarsnik and Gobla are, but the Spider Riders went in, charged in for support, and they're going to keep Skarsnik alive, who's wavering more of the Orc boys into the fight, and there are some unbreakable Night Goblins in there too, which is really important at this stage of the battle because they're the only infantry unit that can still be beat up and continue their fighting. Unbreakable, such an important trait to have when you're fighting big terror-causing monsters. But Vampire Fleet Admiral still killing stuff. The Goblin Shaman just routed, and this is beginning to swing in Sartosa's favor, unleashing the 8-peak loonies and those dwarfs on a chain. Didn't really hit anything. And Morngul's on their last legs. A couple more errors will bring them down, and they will die. Gonna crumble into the dirt. So, what does that leave us with? A tiny sliver of HP on the Night Goblins, the Shaman trying to bring down the Vampire Fleet Admiral, but realizing maybe I shouldn't be here and booking it out of there too. Couple more air boys shooting down the depth guard as they charge in. That is an epic sight. Dual axe infantry getting into the thick of it, but they're probably going to crumble, and Orc air boys are interesting in that they can actually sustain in melee relatively okay, and they won that fight. So this could still go either way. This is still completely up in the air. Greenskins certainly have more on the field, but the Sartosan Free Company charging from the downhill. I don't even know how they got over on that side of the battlefield, but they're going to get into the air boys downhill charge, bonus versus infantry, and that perfect vigor, which I imagine is still working because they're moving pretty quick and carving them up. Those cutlasses go to work and decapitate the Orc boys, and they're going to win this fight. Air boys will fall, and Sartosa maybe taking a commanding lead, but more vindictive glares arcing forward, hitting the Vampire Fleet Admiral, and handful of goblins, handful of Sartosan Free Company, handful of archers, Skarsnik on life support, and that is pretty much it for both sides. The Prada stabbing, decapitating, dismembering wherever it can while going off for the third or fourth time this game. So Skarsnik has indeed filled his purpose as a WA battery, and the Vampire Fleet Admiral surrounded, balance bar even, and then 2 attacks from the Shaman and from Skarsnik. Managed to take him from about a third HP down to 0. One swing, chopping his head off, blood fountaining into the air, and that'll be it. That'll be your game. That was crazy. I mean, there was less than 1,000 HP spread across all of Slade's units there at the end of that battle, and he manages to pull it out. He was one attack, really, from Skarsnik going down and his entire army mass routing to the Vampire Fleet Admiral. That could have easily, with one more attack, gone the other way and given Pirates of Sartosa the win. But he barely pulled it out. That was a crazy ending, and Skarsnik did exactly what he was meant to do. Didn't use that Trixie Traps at all that battle. I don't think it would not have been beneficial because there were no range units on the field. But he did manage to get that wall off 3 times, which really helped even the archers protect themselves better in melee and dish out a little bit more damage against the Morngul's and the crabs who managed to get into the cookie jar. Crazy game. I think those gold chevron Orc boys are a visual glitch. I don't think that they were given gold chevrons. I don't think that those funds work out, and they certainly didn't get enough kills to warrant 3 gold chevrons in a single battle. That's unheard of. It's impossible to get that much XP for a unit in a single game, but the Warlords boys kicked ass. 209 kills, 130 on the Savage Orc Big Guns, and that Foot of Gork got 72 kills, which is pretty crazy. But for Bordija and the Pirates of Sartosa, Morngul's were great and utilized very effectively that game. Got a lot of kills, cycle charged well, got into the archers, they were used very well. And look at those champions, those Free Company militia for Sartosa, 152 kills that game. Pretty impressive. Hope you guys enjoyed that one, really enjoyable. I'll see you next time. Indie Pride, signing out for now.